Okay, good morning, everybody. This is the Sports Coffee, the weekly sports chat with guests coming onto the show. All our episodes now are on the Sports Coffee YouTube channel, so you can. It's free to subscribe and you can watch it at your leisure. So today, our guest speaker, and we're going to have a chat with is Ross Wilding from Fulham Football Club. He's a Premier League academy coach currently, and we're gonna have a chat with Ross about his current role and then certain things that are coming into the future, which Ross would love to sort of give us a bit of an update on. So, morning, Ross. How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Good, thanks. Yeah.
Good. Thanks for having me on.
No problem whatsoever. So, to start with, just for the listeners, really, how did you get into coaching? Was it just an interest of football, or was it something you fell into, or how did that happen?
Yes, obviously a long time ago now. Sort of when I started to think back, it's probably 18 years ago, when I started just on the FA level 2 after university. Really, didn't even study PE A level or anything, because it wasn't particularly great at my school, and went off to uni and stuff and had to study something else. But you know, obviously football's always been a passion, and probably the way that the game was played in England at the time, and the lack of success of the national team and things like that probably frustrated me a little bit with the way football was done, and obviously at that time, leaving uni, thought, well, you know, what am I going to do with my life? Well, while I've got the time, I'm going to try something that I enjoy, and hopefully that I enjoy, and something fun, having done some sort of kids sort of summer camp type coaching type stuff when I was at college or whatever.
So what was your first coaching job? So what was your first coaching job, Ross?
Just doing after school clubs, development centre stuff for a private company in Sussex called Premier. At the time they were called Premier Sport, I think. Something like that. I can't remember now, but it was on somewhere. Planet Sport, beg your pardon, not Premier Sport, Planet Sport. So basically they did the Southampton football and the community stuff. So that was that winter. And then went off to America in the summer after that to do like soccer camps for the summer in New England and America.
Good experience.
Yeah, it's brilliant, just because you're coaching for 6 hours a day, testing loads of games out, and obviously just practicing and learn loads from that. And even today, even with using some of the kids games that we learned then that summer, it's a great experience for anybody. I'd recommend to get into. And then came back to England and started the B license, and then started coaching local teams, under 16s, under 18s, whatever it was, just get loads of practice of coaching, obviously to try and pass that course, and coaching in the community stuff with Brighton. Then when I came home, and then so that was the beginning, but that was seems a long time ago now. But yeah, it was just a passion, and sort of pretty quickly I realised I really enjoyed it, and the kids seemed to engage, so it was something I kept going, and it kind of naturally snowballed, really.
So when did you start sort of full-time coaching as a career, or as a?
So if you class it full time, but yes, I suppose the job at West Suffolk College, obviously when I still work with you. So I got that job in 2005. So before then I was, as I say, working for Brighton, doing volunteer coaching in as I say, local clubs and stuff, and then had an office job in the morning. So I'd managed to sort my life out so I could, get paid work around, a morning office job as well. So, but yeah, 2005 moved up to Bury St Edmunds in Suffolk, obviously for the full time coaching and teaching role, because it was still only obviously a couple of hours in the afternoon.
So how did you get that role? Was it just purely just saw it on the internet?
Yeah, just an application. It was online. I can't remember what website back then. Applied and Wilkes rang me. I don't know what day it was, and said, "Oh, you got an interview." Or somebody from the college rang me, but an interview. I think I chat with Wilkes just about a couple of things, because I was doing applied for a course at Loughborough at the time, a part-time master's. So I think my question was, can I go up there once a month, which I had to do on a Friday and a Saturday, to study that course while I was working, and they were happy with it. And interviewed and did a practical session. It was quite a long interview day, and obviously, a face-to-face interview and stuff, and that was it. Yeah. So then I had to move. And
so just to give a bit of an overview of the because it was a different kind of program at West Suffolk College to probably regular FE colleges.
Yeah, I mean, most of them have got them now, but at the time,
Yeah.
it was Danny Laws had started it. It was one of the, sort of fledgling 16 to 19 full-time football education programs in the country, and we got very, very good caliber of boys released from Norwich, Ipswich, Colchester, Cambridge, etc. in the scheme, and we were really, really lucky, and national champions, as you know, and national cup winners, and everything else, because it wasn't so diluted. Now, obviously, quite rightly, every college is doing it, and lots of non-league clubs are doing it. So obviously, everyone's
it's growing massively, isn't it?
It's a model that's been followed, which is it's a great model for boys, and girls, to follow. So obviously, we had a successful girls team as well at the time that was linked with Ipswich at the time back then.
So touching on the West Suffolk College, obviously the two players that come to mind that you can name drop are currently in the pro system. You've got obviously Nick Pope, who was obviously playing last night, keeping a clean sheet against Liverpool, and then you've got obviously Connor Hall, who's now started his trade in the League Two from coming up from the National League. So from a coaching point of view and from your view, why do you think those two players, was it? And it's not, I wouldn't say it was down to luck, but why do you think those two players have had the opportunity to step into the program? Obviously, they've had two different journeys themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing to remember is that they were both at pro clubs as kids. Obviously, Nick got released from Ipswich before he came to West Suffolk College in Bury Town. 16, so he'd been through a growth spurt, or was growing but not tall enough that they wanted. So I think he was a bit, as you naturally do at that age, lost a bit of coordination or whatever. I couldn't say whether what standard of obviously competition he had at Ipswich for other goalkeepers. I don't know. People talk about his kicking at the time not being the greatest, but a lot of kids can't kick that far when they're 15, 16, so that's not a rarity. So yeah, I'm not, and then Connor was at Leicester as a kid, and I think, I'm not sure whether I can't remember the backstory.
Didn't he live in Diggs? That was
possibly, I don't know, and then he might have been at Cambridge for it. But so yeah, they were both of a caliber anyway, obviously, to have that experience of that level. And I guess that their story, obviously their journeys back into the professional game were different time wise. And I think Nick's desire and passion to keep the ball out of the back of the net, as you obviously see on a weekly basis now on the television, was obviously clear to see. And at 5-a-side on a Friday, it's the thing that sticks out for me is that it's just sort of a fun Friday 5-0 sometimes, and he would be absolutely fuming if he let a goal in and punching the floor, and not to put him off his game or or whatever, but that was his passion, was to stop the ball going in the back of the net, which you can obviously, as I say, clearly see. And then obviously he grew physically, and then he grew maturity wise, and had loads and loads of football, and he says himself that obviously the experiences he had, not even when he left West Suffolk College in Bury Town as well, and went obviously down to Charlton, went on loan to York and Cambridge, lots of teams, and whoever it was, loads and loads of experience, which at a young age a goalkeeper knows, things like catching crosses, when to come, when not to, and everything else. Was obviously stood him in good stead for where the level he's playing at the moment. Connor slightly different, obviously. I mean, amazing story for me for Connor, because he was 25, 26 when he got his, he moved up to Leeds to go to Harrogate. I suppose the thing about Connor is, having lost contact with him a little bit over those years when he was at the clubs after Bury, at Biggleswade, I think it was, and Brackley and whatnot. Obviously, I followed him on social media and bits and pieces, but he obviously must have had a real passion still to want to progress his game, to obviously move clubs, move up the leagues.
Yeah, definitely.
He finally got his chance, and what a story to then go and score at Wembley. It's amazing, and fair play to him. It's brilliant for him.
Yeah, score at Wembley. Plus the fact that I keep obviously keep an eye on both And he's doing really well in the League Two as well. He's in the team. He's been in the team of the week a couple of times already this season. So
I think it's similar to a goalkeeper. He had to grow into the position as a kid because he was very good with the ball at his feet, and like all kids, quite rightly, they want to go and play midfield and score goals, which he could do.
He always had the stature, didn't he?
Yeah, and I think he had to grow into his body and get used to the style of football at non-league, which is obviously different to what he'd been brought up with at Leicester, and that quite rightly. And so it took him a while. But as I say, you'd have to ask him about his, the intricacies of his journey over that period of time. But a fantastic story, and obviously, some of the skills he learned playing non-league, Bury and whatnot. You can obviously see when he has to defend the penalty box. In League Two at the moment, he's obviously doing really well, and obviously, hopefully. Looks like they'll stay up. They should be fine, and he can obviously hopefully have enjoy the rest of his career.
Yeah, definitely. So it must be from your point of view, is obviously being a coach. That those are probably the potentially highlights of seeing players that you've worked with then go on and fulfil their dreams really, and from where they wanted, as a child wanted to be everybody wants to be a footballer if that's their interest. To then actually fulfilling that dream. So that from yourself, that must be quite fulfilling that you've helped them in some way. I'm not saying you've got them to that journey, but you've helped them on their journey to even if it's a little comment, or help them, or a technique, help them with a technique to say, this is, if you work on this is going to help you with your game. And then, they take that on board. And, I know from seeing some tweets in recent times, there's Connor holds you in high esteem, so that must be quite nice to hear and read that so many years ago, you were saying so many years ago, but at the end of the day, it's he still remembers the time that he was at a 16 to 18 lad trying to get into the game really.
There's so many different influences that obviously affect these boys and girls' pathways into whatever they do in the future. So, like you say, I think for me, as long as I remember you as somebody who was on their side and tried to support them, I think that's all you can ask. You can ask for, and hopefully, as I say, it's more just to share that joy that they're experiencing, and to really, the fact that they're such good lads, and I've said it before, that they've got really nice families and everything else. Remember the parents quite well and whatnot behind them, and it's just it's a nice story that they've kind of gone back into the game like any success story. But I think it's also there's loads of other success stories, because the chances of becoming a professional footballer are so slim. From any former player or student or whatever it is, and you hear what they're up to and how their life's going, and then they stop and have a chat. That's what it's about. That's what it's really about. Even the last couple of years, I've bumped into a couple of former students in London. Just walking in the street, and one lad in the pub actually watching a game on a Sunday, and I hadn't seen him for years. Callum Finch, and how are you, Ross, and blah blah blah, and how's things with you? And they're both doing really well. And Zach was another goalkeeper, bumped into him up in Hampstead Heath one summer when I was out going for a walk, and it's just great just to bump into these lads and to hear that they're doing well. Obviously all the boys that are still playing the game and enjoying the game at whatever level it is, that's really important as well. Those that are playing non-league, and earning a little bit of money, a little bit of pocket money or whatever it is, on top of the normal life, normal wages, and they're playing for decent clubs with a half decent pitch and nice facilities and all the rest of it. That's great as well, because you can almost live like being a footballer, even though 9 to 5 you've got to go and do your plumbing job or whatever else it is, that lads are doing. And then the other one is coaches. People who've gone into work in sport and work in coaching. Like obviously a lot of the people that you obviously work with at West Suffolk College. It must be great to see, people going on to be PE teachers and people working in Dubai and whatever else. It's great to see. So it's just trying to help people a little bit, if you can, to help them on their journey, really.
No, definitely. Yeah, that's brilliant. So from your coaching styles, has it always been just through the FA philosophies, or is it something that you've always thought, well, actually, this is the way I like to coach my teams or coach coach the players or individuals? Is it something that you've sort of worked on yourself, or you just work to a syllabus of wherever you're working at the time?
I think that's always a balance. It's always a difficult balance to a challenging balance, but as long as you have clear communication with the people you're working for, then most people are you're able to structured improvisation is a posh way of describing it, but you have a structure to what you work to, and then obviously within that you've got flexibility to work to your own style. And if you're not working to your own style at anything you do in life, you're not going to be successful at it, because you're not being yourself,
No.
So that would be the way that I kind of generically describe the way that I've kind of dealt with things and coached, if you like. I, having done this for a while now, it's been real interesting to see the philosophy of coaching and how it's kind of changed a little bit over the years. So obviously, when I first started out, we're coming probably out of the dark ages, if you like, in some respects of British football, and obviously the influence of the foreign influence and the fantastic managers like Arsene Wenger and stuff who brought a different style to the country, and obviously professionalism of players looking after themselves, etc. So there was certainly a big focus in England at the time on the technical side of the game and improving the technique of players. So a lot of the practice at the time that you generally saw at any level was around technique, which has massive advantages. And then it was kind of a lot of research was done, and stuff I read at Loughborough at the time, and stuff I wrote my thesis on, and stuff was around the game-based approach and the advantage of small-sided games and unstructured play, etc., which is now the zeitgeist of the time, and is kind of the way that people are coaching at the moment. And in my opinion, we've kind of lost some of the technical side of things.
Okay.
Because I guess you can only cover so much. But for me, it's always been a blend between the two. You've obviously got to, it's not rocket science, but you've got to play the game, because that's the realism of it. But people need help sometimes. People need a bit of assistance with how to strike a ball, or the best way to do a turn, or the timing of a movement, or whatever it might be. And for me, that's always been a key element of what I've tried to do is coach individuals within a session rather than just coach the whole group to play a game, if that makes sense.
No, definitely. So from that side, Ross, obviously current role is in the academy at Fulham. So is that something that you can implement into your role there? With obviously the technical side, you're saying you think the technical side is not necessarily a focus as much as it used to be. Is that something that, as an individual coach, you can implement into the sessions and the teams and players that you're working with on a weekly basis?
Yeah, it's. I mean, I've only been there since sort of September time. So obviously it's an evolving relationship, and then obviously within that, we probably trained for 12, 13 weeks, and then obviously the kids are off again. So it's something that was developing, and something that as a coaching team, a lot of the coaches I'm working with at the time actually are fairly new to the club as well. So. So it's something that we're working on together to get the syllabus sort of suited quite well. Like most clubs, obviously the players have individual targets, so there's part of the sessions per week which are structured towards their individual targets anyway. So I'm currently working with a group of players on a Friday across 10s, 11s, 12s. With the 12s coach as well, and we're looking at different things like aerial control or turning on the ball or whatever it might be. And obviously within those practices, you get an individual focus in a small group. One thing we've certainly done with 10s and 11s, because it's obviously essential for that age, is it's real sort of short, small game stuff. So the way that I often try to work, and they're happy for me to do so, and it seems to have worked so far when we've done it, is like a mini whole approach. So we'll have a little game for 10 minutes. And then we'll break it down, and for 10 minutes we'll do some technical practice of something that's come up in the game or the topic for the week. So it might be turning or shooting or whatever it is, finishing, and then go back into the game again. So for me that's really key, that the children see the relevance of what they're trying to practice. Because sometimes I think that the reason that technical practice can be not as effective, and certainly I remember this as a kid and I found it boring, people trying to get me to do drills and stuff, is you don't see the relevance of why you're doing it, and sometimes the practices aren't realistic. So you can still do technical practice in really realistic settings, and I think that's the key for the coach. For me, is that bridge between the two, rather than going right, we finish the game, we go and do technical. It's having something in between that's still got realism to it, and it's got the right perception cues and bits and pieces in the practice to make it realistic while they're still doing it.
So what is, your, I suppose your goal, so to speak, for your role at Fulham? Is it something that you want to try and build and try and find some more roles inside the club? Is there ability to get
possibly, I mean, obviously I'm quite new there,
a full-time role into that?
Yeah, I have no idea. Obviously that's up for the club over for me to have that conversation with them over in the future. I mean, obviously I'm new there. I've really enjoyed my time there. The good people there that are good people, and there's obviously some really experienced coaches and people like Ben Bartlett, etc., that are working there. Some really good guys that obviously been involved at the highest level of sort of coaching in the country. So it's a great experience to be there. Obviously, having been at Cambridge and Leyton Orient before, it's very different being in a Cat 1 to a Cat 3 academy. So having that experience is really good. So at the minute, especially with the pandemic and everything else, it's I'm taking it one day at a time like everyone else, and we're just trying to get through the year, aren't we? So to be honest, looking forward to the future. It's not something which I'm massively sort of focusing on too much with regards to in the summer I want this to happen or this to happen. For me, it's just a case of trying to be as good as you can when you're there. Obviously trying to help the boys, and obviously trying to improve as much as I can as a coach, as you always do, whatever level you're at. There's always room for improvement and to learn, and that's it at the minute, if I'm honest. So it's just I'm really enjoying it when we are in. Obviously at the moment we're off, like everyone else. So
so you touched on, Ross, you touched on the Cat 1 and Cat 3. So obviously Leyton Orient and Cambridge are Cat 3, and Cat 1 obviously Fulham. For the listeners, just who probably know what academy is, and their child may be in a academy system, or maybe in a pro club setup. What is the difference between a Cat 1, 2, and 3, as you mentioned earlier? Just to break it down for a parent, so to speak.
Yeah, so from a logistical basis, it's a bit like an Ofsted inspection at school. So obviously the different academies get graded by the Premier League, and they have I can't remember the name, Pass for Soccer or something, but like a private company will come and then obviously be inspected no matter what. There's certain standards which different categories of clubs have to adhere to, and there's quite a complex matrix of standards in which they have to meet. Obviously, part of it is to do with facilities. So the Cat 1 Academy, for example, will have to have a full-size indoor 3G pitch. So obviously the boys can train all winter regardless, etc., etc. There's obviously the luxury of those facilities for clubs lower down. Obviously, understandably, that isn't there. But then obviously the money that the Category 1 academies get back from producing a player which can play in their first team, he's obviously saves the club £40 million to buy someone, so it does pay for itself. So there's kind of the logistical standards of it, and then obviously you've got the EPP, which is the Elite Player Performance Pathway Plan. So Category 1 academy can approach a Cat 2 or a Cat 3 club, and obviously if both parties are happy, can take a player from if they're within the catchment area. From one of those academies to Cat 1, but obviously the Cat 3 club, depending on how many years the boy's been there, etc., will get compensated. So it's to help the best players play and train on a weekly basis with other of the best players. To obviously try and progress them as higher up the ladder. And in my experience of Cat 3 clubs, obviously when there's a boy that has interest from a Cat 1 club, you want them to go, because you're not going to stand in someone's not going to stand in someone's way for them to progress their future. But quite rightly, that club does get compensated financially for the time and the influence they've had on that boy's career, and sometimes quite handsomely, depending on the quality or the potential quality of the player that gets moved up the system.
Okay, that's cool. No, it's good to know, because the word academy is bandied about, and people don't always know, even if their child is in an academy, what level there is and what what the club. The games program, obviously Cat 1s would play Cat 1s and some Cat 2s. Cat 3s generally would be in a league with Cat 3 clubs. But within that, they'll obviously organise festivals, tournaments, friendlies. So there is obviously mixture amongst sort of interlinking as well. Probably locality as well, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. So you touched on qualifications, and I know you're highly qualified across everything, and that's something that you look, your coaching, sort of element comes into, and from that area, and breaking it down. This probably the sports science side of it is probably quite key to what you've always been involved in. So what level coach are you now, Ross?
So I'm level 4 coach now. So
okay.
Level 4 would be the A license, which actually passed when I was still at West Suffolk College. That was tough.
Yeah, sure.
So back then, it's before St George's Park was built. So I did the course at Lilleshall.
Sure.
2010ish, I think. I can't remember now. And I think 4 people out of the whole cohort passed. I think that's quite right too, because it was tough. And it took me a long time to pass that course, probably another 2-3 years perhaps. And one of the tutors, Jeff Pike from the FA, used to come and watch us up at Hardwick Heath in Bury on a Friday afternoon once a month, and I'd film all my
sessions. I remember you saying this.
Record my voice on an iPod, and it was, if I'm honest, it was grueling. It was horrible, but I eventually scraped through the skin of my teeth, and really at the time, really proud to have achieved.
I was going to say, is that in
not working with academy players, professional academy players at the time? It was a tough gig to pass at the time. Yeah.
So from that, is that one of the biggest achievements you've done in your sort of coaching?
It's certainly
as such.
It's certainly a milestone which opened doors, I suppose, if you like, or so. It was just a personal achievement which I thought, well, if I want to, it's like anything, and I think with most people, if you want to do something, for me, you've got to try and do it to your best of your ability, and that was one of the milestones which, I guess, I needed to want to pass for myself to prove whether I could do it at the best of my ability.
And I'm guessing that opens doors for you as well, being that there's, I wouldn't say.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I got the job at Cambridge because they rang Wilkes, because obviously Wilkes used to play for Cambridge, to coach their under 14s, and Wilkes, was still obviously involved in non-league football at the time, or was just about to change teams and whatnot. And I said to Mark Bonner, who was obviously their manager now, but was the academy manager at the time, do you want to have an interview with Ross? He's the coach here, blah 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 blah. So whether I always got an A license had any influence on it or not, I have no idea. But obviously at the time it was a very rare qualification to get, if you like, because there's not many cohorts of people get onto the course each year. I'm not quite sure what it is these days, but at the time there was only one set of non-professionals, if you like, ex-players. There was one cohort for them sort of in May time, and there was a cohort for the non-professionals later on in the summer, and that was it per year. So it was tough to get onto. It took me a few years to get onto the course in the first place. Yeah,
that's a great achievement. So going forward at the moment for your coaching, I know obviously with Fulham, as we've mentioned, but you're looking to do a slightly new direction as well. So could you tell us a little bit about what you're looking to do going forward?
It's something I've been interested in a while. Again, sort of the technical side of the game. Almost the biomechanics, if you like, but less so with the science, because I didn't study biomechanics. But I went on a course called Action Types a couple of years ago. Part 1 of it, I need to do the part 2, but obviously the current pandemic, we can't do that. So perhaps in the summer, it's run by a group of people in Europe. A guy called Bertrand, who's Swiss guy, so it'll possibly be in Holland or Switzerland, but it's looking at individual technique, and it's looking around. They've found ways to measure the fact that this kind of, they've categorized 16 different ways that people move. The way they run is different. Obviously, people run differently, kick differently, throw differently, and it's related to your brain, and the way your brain works is obviously linked to your body. So it's looking at personality, motivation, etc. as well. So I found it a fascinating course. For a lot of people, it's a little bit wacky and a little bit, like this sounds a little bit strange. But a real simple explanation of it is if you look at the way that 2 different people kick a football. So, for example, Kevin De Bruyne, would be classed as a vertical guy, who's pretty straight in the way that he runs up to the ball and kicks the ball. And you compare him to a Lionel Messi, who's a horizontal guy who will approach the ball from the side and have more of a bend on it, a bit like a Beckham. So there's no point trying to teach somebody from that category to kick a ball like that when actually they're more suited to that. So it's looking at techniques which with best suit individuals, which is something which football is probably a bit behind on other sports due to the nature of the sport. If you look at the work that some of these coaches are doing with tennis players, cricketers, baseball players in America and stuff, it's massive. And you know, because they're really, obviously it's a bit more of a technical focus, if you like, and it's a popularity, if you like, to talk about technique and all that kind of stuff, or skill, really. If I'm honest, it's technique a little bit, but it's more to do with skill and finding the best way for somebody to comfortably, efficiently produce a technique that suits them. So big thing I'm looking at the minute is weak foot kicking.
Sure.
So most people will try and replicate their right foot with their left, or vice versa, when actually the way you kick with each foot is actually going to be different because of the way your shoulders move, for example. So it's something I was working on literally just before the latest lockdown, and doing some analysis with some lads with a private academy down in South London, in Kingston. So it's something I'll be looking to carry on, obviously, once we come out in April.
So how can people find out about this new venture?
Yeah, so I've given it a name of Technipro Analysis, so you can look it up on my social media. I've got a website, it's techniproanalysis.co.uk. So yeah, there's a little bit of information on there, but obviously, as I say, once we come out of the latest lockdown, hopefully I'll start to be able to post videos, etc. There's some explanations of how this all stuff can kind of relate to movements, specifically obviously at the moment in football, but obviously it can be related to any sporting movement, you know, moving forward. So it's I think it's exciting times. I think you know, as you'll see with a lot of clubs at the moment, they're now employing individual development coaches for under 23s, like at Brentford and Huddersfield, etc. There's a lot of clubs are now doing this because they're saying, well, we've got these lads that are quite good and they've got to 18, 19, 20, they're not quite polished articles, right? We need to, you know, make sure they've got the best shot, the best cross, whatever is the super strength of their game.
Sure.
So it's almost like the next area now is almost to individualize a lot of the coaching which players experience.
Okay. So what I'll do at the end of this, and when we put this out onto our Sports Coffee YouTube channel, I'll put if you send me over your contacts, your handles and everything, then we'll put it on there. So then anybody who's listened to this and wants to find out a bit more from this new venture for the Technipro Analysis, they can get in contact with you, Ross, and go from there. So I just want to, no, it's not a problem. So this is a platform for people to, you know, talk about their journeys, but also if there's new journeys and new pathways coming through, then more than happy to sort of assist and help. So again, I'd like to, you know, just wrap it up there and say, great to catch up with you. You know, it's great to hear about the different parts of your journey. Like I say, we can promote your journey going on our Twitter, you know, our Twitter handles. Getting quite busy now, so we'll definitely put it on there as well. Like I said, it's on the YouTube channel from probably next week, but we'll announce it on there. So yeah, just appreciate your time. I know that you're busy trying to set up all the different aspects to the new venture. So great chatting with you again, Ross, and all the best for the new venture and your current role at Fulham. And we'll hopefully speak again soon about the success.
Thanks so much for having me on. It's been really good to chat coaching. I know hopefully a couple of people might be listening, might be able to get something out of it. But
no, definitely, yeah.
You know, like yourself as well, trying to get a new venture. It's always good to get things going. And I think people communicating across different sports and different formats of the game. Obviously, listen to your previous interview with Richard Beale. It was interesting to hear his take on things. So it's
definitely
really good got going. So great stuff.
Brilliant. Okay.
All right. Take care. All the best.